So welcome back viewers to my channel. We are moving on with our topic of dim lenses. Okay, so today in this lesson we are going to look at something else. Remember, we are still moving on with applications of converging lenses, or simply applications of lenses. Okay, so today we have two diagrams on the board. We have the human eye and we have the camera. So we have the human eye and we have the camera. Now we are using these two. We're looking at these two because they have what we are looking for. It's part of what we have been studying in this topic. Now when you look at the human eye, what can we see? We have the lens, which is the most important here. The crystalline lens is a converging lens, biconvex. The other thing we have is the retina. This section here is our retina, and that is the screen of the eye. That is where images are formed. They are formed on the retina, and these images are true images, meaning they are upside down, they are inverted. So true images will form, and they will form on the retina, and being true simply means they will be inverted. So when images are forming in your eye, they are upside down. Okay, what else do we have apart from the retina? We have a section we call the choroid layer, which is black. The choroid layer is the whole of that layer. It is black in color. It's dark region. Black, we know when light enters the eye, there is the stray light. When too much of it gets into the eye, then the excess, which is not going to fall on the retina, is going to fall on the choroid layer, and it will be absorbed by the choroid layer. Remember, black is a very good absorber of light. So it will not cause too much lighting inside the eye because it will be absorbed by the choroid layer. That's why it is black. Okay. The other important point is what we call the blind spot. Now, the blind spot is not sensitive to light. The cells there are not sensitive to light. So any image that falls on the blind spot will not be interpreted by the brain. It will not be visible. There is the other point we call the fovea. Now remember, the blind spot and the fovea, those regions are where we have the retina. The fovea is part of the retina that gives us the best vision. The cells in that region are very good, especially in interpreting interpreting colors. So it's the best part of the retina. So images that fall on the fovea are best interpreted, but those that fall on the bright spot, that one will not be interpreted because that region, the cells there are not sensitive to light. Okay. What is the other part is the vitreous humor beyond the lens, and in front of the lens there is another liquid we call the aqueous humor. So these are colorless liquid. This is more of a semi-crystal, is not really a liquid, is not a solid, is a jelly, is something jelly. Something jelly is semi-solid, okay? So this is semi-solid liquid, and this one is a transparent liquid. This is a liquid, but this is a gel. Now, they give shape to the eye, and they also hold the lens in its place, okay? So that the lens does not move, swing about in the eye. So they hold the lens in the place, into its place, and they also give the shape to the rest of the eye. Okay, so we also have what is most important there. This we call the ciliary muscle. This is called a ciliary muscle, and in front of the ciliary muscle there is that part we call the iris. So the iris. So the front of the ciliary muscle, we have this iris. So this muscle is very important. Let's look at this muscle, the ciliary muscle, we have some suspensions, which we call the suspensory ligaments. They hold the lens in the place. They hold the lens into place. The suspensory ligaments are the ones that are holding the lens. So the muscle, the ligaments are connected to the ciliary muscle. So what does that mean? The work of a muscle is to contract and relax, bringing about movement. So when these ciliary muscles relax or contract, they pull the ligaments. And because the ligaments are connected, they are directly connected to the lens, then they pull the lens or compress the lens. So that now the shape of the lens is not static. The shape of the lens is flexible. It keeps on changing depending on what is happening with the ciliary muscles. So they contract and relax, pulling the ligaments which are connected to the ciliary muscle. And when these ligaments are pulled or they are compressed, then they either stretch the lens or compress the lens. Now that is very important because it changes the focal length of the lens. So the focal length of the eye lens is not constant. It is not fixed. It is flexible. It changes with the shape of that lens. And because of that compression and relaxation of the ciliary muscles, then the shape of the lens keeps on changing. And as the shape of the lens keeps on changing, then the focal length of the lens also keeps on changing. What for? Because of something we call accommodation. Remember, the eye is looking at all types of objects, from some that are very far to some that are very near. And for the image distance is constant from the lens to the retina. That distance is constant. So that distance is not changing. So the image distance is constant. So to accommodate objects, we call it accommodate, to be able to focus objects on the retina, both objects that are far and those that are near, then we have to keep changing the focal length of our eyelids. And for that to happen, that is where now the ciliary muscles are coming in. Okay, so we change the focal length, and as the focal length changes, then the image now falls on the retina regardless of the image distance. Okay. Now from there, we have the iris is also very important because the iris controls the opening, the eye opening, which we call the pupil. So the iris controls the pupil, which is the opening of the eye. So when they open more, remember this iris is part of the ciliary muscle, so it's able to contract and relax. So as it relaxes and contracts, it changes the size of the opening. That aperture is called the pupil. So it changes the size of the pupil as it relaxes and contracts. The iris is also colored. For some people, it could be colored blue. For some, it is colored brown, depending. So the color does not change what you see with your eye. So it's not that important. So it controls the opening. What for? Because by changing the opening, we also change the amount of light that is getting into the eye, and that will affect the image. Remember, the more the light, the brighter the image. The less the light, the sharper the image that will form on the screen. That is very important. Okay, so what have we not looked at? There's another muscle. This is outside the eye. There's the cornea. Now, the cornea is part of a layer we are calling the sclerotic layer, which is the eye, the white of the eye, or the eye white. Now, that is that section. Is the whole of that section is the sclerotic layer. Now, that sclerotic layer, unlike the colloid, which is black, that layer, sclerotic layer, that layer is white. Not only that, the front of the sclerotic layer is white, and that front of the sclerotic layer is called the cornea. So the cornea is the front of that sclerotic layer. Now, why is the cornea very important? Now, it is the first point where the light coming from the object strikes. And when light coming from the object strikes the cornea, it is refracted. So the first refraction of light happens at the front of the eye, it happens at the cornea. So it is the one that refracts light even more than the lens. So the first refraction of light happens at the cornea before it happens at the lens. Also, these liquids here, as you can see them, they are transparent. The aqueous humor and the vitreous humor, they are also transparent, and so they help in the refraction of light. So before the image is formed on the retina, the ray coming from the object has been refracted so many times by the cornea, that's why we have the most refraction, by the aqueous humor, by the lens itself, and by the vitreous humor. And that is the eye, and that is how it operates. So what do we have there? The lens, then the retina, then we have the cornea. They are very important. Actually, every part of it is very important. Now, what about the optic nerve? The optic nerve is what is sending the message of that image to the brain. Okay, it sends the message of that image on the retina to the brain. What for? The brain is able to interpret every information on that image. It is able to be able to calculate the size of the image, its height, and it is every aspect of the image. Remember, this image is upside down and the object is not upside down. So the brain must be able to interpret that image as upright. That's number one. Number two, image forming on the screen on the retina are of different sizes. The brain must also be able to judge the exact size of that image. So that is the optic nerve. It is the one that is taking the image to the brain. So the other diagram we have is the camera. Okay, have the camera. It works on the same principle as the eye. We have a system of lenses, and we have our converging lens that is biconvex. So this is also there in the eye. Now the film is the retina of the eye. That is where the images fall. Okay, the other part is have the spool. We have the shutter. We have the diaphragm, that opening. And of course, the rest is a system of lenses. Now, how does the camera work? Now, the camera, unlike the eye, which is permanently open, so images are falling on the retina throughout, the camera does not operate like that. The shutter will only open when you are taking the photograph. So it will open for a short period of time and then it will close. What does that mean? It means the images falling on the screen, that is the film, you can only take one photograph at a time because the shutter will close. It will only open when you want to take another photograph. So it is permanently closed as long as you are not taking photographs. Unlike the eye, which is permanently open, so images falling on the retina throughout. For the camera, the images will only form on the film when the shutter is open. Okay. Now the other thing is that this system of lenses help in refraction of light. Each lens has its own function. It will reflect light. Part of it will, some of the lenses will converge light, others will diverge it. So it's a system of lenses. And the thing about them is that system of lenses can be moved to and fro. You can move it forward and backward. What does that mean? It means that the image distance, the distance from the lens to the film, that distance is variable. You can vary the distance. Unlike in our lens where the image distance is fixed, constant, in a camera that distance can be varied by either moving the system of lenses forward or moving the system of lenses backward for accommodation. Accommodation simply means varying the lens, either the lens, object distance, or varying the shape of the lens like in the eye, so that now we are able to, images can fall on the screen, which is the retina. Okay, that's still accommodation. The other thing we have here is that opening. That opening can also be controlled by the diaphragm. The diaphragm will control the aperture, that is the opening. So if you move the diaphragm closer to each other, the aperture becomes smaller, and when they move away from each other, the aperture becomes larger. So the diaphragm is more or less like the iris of the eye. Okay, so the pupil is the aperture. And so there are these similarities and the differences. So what are some of the similarities? Of course, they both have the lenses. They both have the retina is the film. We both have the pupil, that is the opening, and the diaphragm, which is our iris. The other thing is they are black inside. They are black inside. The camera is painted black on the inside for the same reason as to why the choroid layer is black, to absorb any excess light that is has gotten into that section of the camera or that section of the eye, to absorb the extra light that will not fall on the screen. I think those are some of the similarities. What are some of the differences? We have mentioned some of them. For example, here we have said the image distance is fixed, but the image distance can be varied. Okay. The other main difference is the lens focal length for our eye. The focal length is variable. The lens, we said, changes the shape depending on the movement of the ciliary muscles. But for our lens here, the focal length, that one does not change, because we are not having a system where we are the lens of the camera, that one is fixed, and so its focal length is also fixed. Okay, so we can change the distance here, but we cannot change the focal length. In the eye, we cannot change the image distance, but we can change the focal length. Okay, I don't see any other main difference between the two. Okay, let's say now what are there are some terms I want us to discuss on the eye. The near point. What is the near point? Now that is the closest distance that your eye can be able to observe objects. Now the near point, if you look at an object, you look at, when you bring an object very close, the eye is no longer able to see the object. You can only see the object if you move it further away from the eye. So the nearest point where the eye can observe an object clearly without any help, that distance is called the near point. Now the opposite of the near point is the far point. The far point is the farthest point where the eye can see without any form of assistance. If you look with your eye, the farthest point you can see without any form of assistance, meaning without a microscope, without a stethoscope, without glasses, that is the far point. The near point is normally around 20-25 centimeters. The farthest point is infinity. You can see as far as you can. Now, the other term is accommodation. We have already talked about. Accommodation has to do with, for an eye, changing the focal length of your lens so that the images of both far and near objects can be formed on the retina. Changing the focal length of the eye so that both far and near objects can have their images falling on the retina. That is accommodation. Now for a camera, it has to do with changing the system of lenses, either moving the system far away from far away from the screen or closer to the screen, so that again images of objects that you want, whose photograph you want to take, can fall on the retina. The other way, maybe you can do it with a camera. You can literally move towards the object or move far away from the object. besides moving the system of lenses, you can literally move towards the object or move away from the object. Either way, it is accommodation. So that brings us to the end of our lesson. I hope you enjoyed that lesson. Read more, research more, and you get better understanding of more of these applications. There are more applications. There are just some of them, but I hope with that you'll be able to understand the applications of these lenses. I hope, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also share with others whom you think will benefit from these lessons. And I am hoping to see you in my next video. Now for now,